We will call to order the Tuesday, May 28th FARGODOME Authority meeting here. And the first order of business is the agenda. Before you, is there any additions on the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented? First Mike and Rick.
Second.
Two. All right, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. All right, carrying on to item number 1, and that is the minutes from April 30th. Questions, comments?
Move to approve.
Thank you, Nancy. We got a first from Nancy, a second from Dan. All those in favor of approving the April 30th minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Old business. Is there any old business in front of the FDA? All right. Item number 3, general manager report. Table is yours, Rob.
All right, thanks. Starts on page 4. As always, the month, which is for the month ending April, is on the left-hand side. Year-to-date on the right-hand side. So for the month of April, 9 events with attendance of just over 26,800 compared to a budgeted attendance of 29,500. Total event income of 234,000 compared to a budget of 214,000, with indirect expenses of 402,500 compared to a budget of 403,500. So for the month of April, we had a net surplus of 4,700 compared to a budgeted deficit of 30,000 overall. So on the event side, the concerts about 9,100 below budget. That was the Mercy Me show. Good attendance, and it's one of the smaller concerts. However, with it being Christian contemporary, no alcohol was sold, so you kind of get that plus the different deals with the merch sales. So the ancillary revenue was down, but quite favorable when you consider the type of show it was compared to a normal budgeted show. NDSU with the spring football game, that was not budgeted, so that was about $1,500 above budget because there wasn't one. To note, with that, because of the agreement that's in place, we weren't having the football turf out. NDSU did pay the $1,500 to convert the field on and off the floor, which is part of our existing agreement with that. So we appreciate that and their willingness to do that. On the family event side, the Shrine Circus about 9,300 above budget preliminarily. They take a little bit longer to settle all of their extra ticket sales that happen at Hornbacher's and all the different areas that they sell the ticket sales at. But this is typically a pretty solid estimate. The net service income was a little higher, and there was more online ticket sales. And then I looked, and like merch sales were novelty and merch sales that they sell that we get a percentage were a little high. Parking was a little lower, so it all kind of balanced out there. And on the convention miscellaneous, $19,000 above budget. That's the Sanford Employee Recognition event. We don't budget that, but that did happen again this year in April, and that's our revenue there basically is just building rent, and then also percentages, our percentages on the ability for others to do business here, and so our percentages on catering and decorating fees as well. Other income, again, interest rates continue to be much higher than budgeted, so about 13,000 above budget there. On the expense side, labor was about 2,800 below budget with the different changes we've had in staffing, and everything else is normal. So that takes us for the month of April. Any questions from anyone? Moving to the year to date, then we've had 50 events with an attendance of 168,700 compared to a budget of about 146,000. We've had total event income of just about 1.36 million compared to a budget of 1,275,000. There we go. Not 1,275,000. That would be a bit high. We've had expenses of $1,707,000 compared to a budgeted $1,765,000, so kind of pretty close to there. So we have a net surplus for the first 4 months of $333,000 compared to a budget of $142,500. Questions?
That's good.
No questions? conclude that part of the report.
Need to, financial.
Well, you're the president, so you can't ask for a motion.
So,
Somebody else who was there would need to. And
was it you?
Mike would be the only one who's a member of the
Oh,
finance
the power
committee that is
entity.
here
Oh, at
now.
that time?
At that
Yes.
time.
Oh.
You still are. We haven't hit agenda
Oh,
items
golly.
5,
All
so.
right. Well, Mr. President.
Yes.
At the Finance Committee, both the Finance and the Building Committee approved the financial statements as is, so you would make that motion.
Second.
Got a second from Rick, this roll call?
Dan?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Troy?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes. Am I done doing your work for you now, or?
You can,
Okay. All
you
right.
can have a cookie.
Okay.
Blake's the one who skated out on you. You're doing it for
Okay.
Blake.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike, appreciate that.
All right, moving on, past and upcoming events then, since our last meeting on April 30th. We did have, out in the parking lots actually, working with Fargo Public Schools. Amanda worked with them for the Career on Wheels. They kind of took over the west side of the building and had all sorts of career opportunities for high school students to consider as they consider their futures moving forward and ruling the world. Oof, look out. That was May 3rd, that Friday. Then the next weekend, NDSU commencement moved in, set up and rehearsed the 8th through the 10th with their 2 ceremonies at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on Saturday the 11th. We then hosted the Cody Johnson Country Show on Saturday the 18th. Good attendance, good crowd. Had a lot of positive feedback from that. Probably a little more than 14,000 in attendance, so great attendance number on that. See how that goes. A busy evening. Then Shields used kind of half of the arena floor and all the concourse as they had a bunch of their different footwear distributors in, training all of their salespeople on new products and kind of using it as they train it around. So it was fun to watch a bunch of Shields people run around and get sweaty, so I sat in the chairs and laughed. And that was last week on the 22nd, which brings us to today. Any questions, comments for past events here? Moving forward then, they're setting it up today and tomorrow, and Fargo High School graduations will be in on Thursday, Friday the 30th and 31st to rehearse their ceremonies. Saturday will be a dark day, and then Sunday, the 2nd, they will have the 3 Fargo High School ceremonies, which actually I think are the last ones to happen. So noon, 3, and 6 on that Sunday the 2nd. If you saw in the parking lot, they've got the fencing up already in the northeast parking lot, getting ready for Happy Harry's Rip Fest. That'll start set up in earnest on Friday, and then hit it again on Monday and Tuesday the 3rd and 4th, and we open up at 11 a.m. Wednesday the 5th, and that'll be 11 to 11 the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Rolling out of that, bringing the football turf out on the floor, and NDSU will have used the FARGODOME, the venue, as part of their camp venues for the weekends of the 15th, 16th, and the 22nd, 23rd, which brings us to our next authority meeting, which will be Tuesday, June 25.
24.
We meet on Tuesdays, don't we?
Did I write down? Oh, that's Monday, yeah, all right.
25th.
25th.
I think the loudness of your shirt was blocking your vision.
Got rattled. You got dressed.
Dude, I'm all stumped here.
Question.
Yes.
So I know the Fargo, just from your perspective with the marathon happening on a different week, and they're actually doing it, everything outdoors. Historically, it's been indoors. So just out of curiosity, what kind of a mess do you think it'll be on those days, those years when it's raining or blowing 30 miles an hour when they can't get out of that? I'm just curious your thoughts.
Thoughts on what?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of activities that are happening indoors, protected from all that.
Yep.
And to do that outdoors, I don't know how that will function. Again, it's not our worry, but I'm just kind of curious.
No, I think a couple of things there. You know, a lot of the marathons around the country are all outside. But I don't know the specifics this year, but I do believe their packet pickup and stuff like that, and the 5K are at Concordia.
Oh,
So I think the majority of their packet pickup is supposed to be happening at Concordia, I believe Thursday or for sure Friday. And then the 5K, I think, starts and runs through there, but runs across Main Avenue and runs down. This year is an odd year for several reasons that actually go back 16 months, and even prior to the unfortunate passing of Mark. With it being the 20th year, he had kind of let us know. I had let him know, hey, we have a chance to do a big concert, which Cody Johnson was the normal, or would have historically been the marathon weekend for this last year. But he had also said, well, it's the 20th year anniversary, and so like they did on the 10th year, at least this time they had a little bit more communication, said, well, kind of want to maybe celebrate the Main Avenue Bridge and the start of it from the year one, and there were some other factors that don't need to be gone into that will remain private with Mark and his family of why they wanted to do the Main Avenue Bridge for this year. I think in the end, obviously things really changed. It didn't work out totally to start there, and so I believe, or I know that they're just using FARGODOME parking lots on Saturday, and so they'll park here because they're starting in not our, but the letter R lot at NDSU, or onto 17th Avenue as well. And so it'll be a little different, but obviously we have high school graduations.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
Saturday's a dark day, but it just didn't work out to have it here.
Yeah, no.
And actually for 2025, we have a couple of events in May that were 2-year planning processes.
Right.
And so we have the same date challenges in 25.
Yeah.
Again, based on conversations that happened with different groups prior to last May, we felt it was the best business move, and so went that route.
Yeah.
Now I'm hearing that the marathon company is looking to keep active, so we'll see what happens. But I think they have a lot of decisions to get through. They're getting through this year, and I think it'll be a big task as far as, the convenience or inconvenience of it. Yeah, if it's windy or rainy, it's more of a challenge. Nothing that most races don't deal with already.
One point or another.
Right, I understand, but I guess as a spectator, I've gone a couple of times to watch my daughter, and it was sure nice on those cold, windy days to go inside and
100%.
watch them come through and all that, so.
Yeah, well, I think it leans towards kind of our conversations last week and our conversations that we've been having for a couple of years now of revenue generation.
Right.
And yes, the buildings such as the FARGODOME are built. That's typically why public dollars are used to create that economic impact. That number had kind of been on the decline with the marathon. It was still there in years past, but there was really no revenue generation for the facility. It would tie up the facility for about a week. So we were making changes and things such as that. And last year was the first year that they paid rent.
Right.
And so going forward, they would, and to pay rent in this facility to make it feasible for operations, it does get kind of expensive.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if any of the runners that have been here before notice any difference and say, hey, we want to go back to the old way.
Well, I will say that I'm pretty sure they're going to hear that because we've gotten calls this week, and we've actually heard from building partners of, hey, can we make sure our suite's open for the marathon this weekend? Well, you could, but the doors are locked. So I think there's going to be some confusion. Hopefully that they are taking the proper steps to get the information out. More importantly, hopefully those participating are actually reading, comprehending, and understanding the information they're getting. That doesn't always happen, but yeah. And so we'll see what next year brings. You know, we had talked last year potentially about doing a Memorial Day weekend, and for us, from the building standpoint, we can do that if it doesn't fall with high school graduations. Because to do it up till Saturday, I mean, we saw Memorial Day was it's usually not the greatest weekend. It's more of a volunteer challenge that they would have with that. So I think they have some more decisions coming ahead for 25.
Thank you, Rob. Mike, good discussion. Carrying on, we will go to item B, and that's committee reports. I just looked through the minutes here. I saw that everybody was here for the presentation of the operating budget and the capital budget. Suggestions, Rob?
Rick was not here.
Well, yes, forgive me, yes.
Typically, you have, we haven't really reviewed unless there's questions from the group, or Rick, if you did not
I just
were
have
present.
2 questions.
So we won't answer those, you had to have 4 or more. And then typically, you have taken a separate motion
Yes.
by the authority to
Yes.
approve
That's
both
what I
of
was
those.
chunking
Yes.
along here. So for
Yeah.
the sake of the minute side of things, if you draw your attention on the this page right here, the one that has the operating and the capital there on page 1 is the projected budget. It has a series of columns there has actuals all the way through 2025 budget. And then on page 20, this is for 2025, and on page 24 of that same packet is the projected capital budget for 2025. So I just draw your attention to that, and because now we'll open it for questions.
Just 2 questions.
I thought we said it had to be 4 or more.
One more.
Well, don't worry, he could do that, so.
Exactly.
stick to-
Yeah, I'm sure these were discussed, but I missed it, so I apologize for that.
No, it's fine.
The one was the steam and heating and cooling, you know, it decreased a little bit, but I'm thinking is that, we had a increased a little bit, we had a pretty warm year this year, and I know you say you take the 3 years averages. Is that enough of an increase? That's what I'm asking, compared to last year.
Turn to your left and ask that guy. No, not just to your immediate left and ask that guy. To the guy who sends, to the guy who sends us the rate. It's based off of historicals, it's the timing in that, so I think we discussed it, it's in there, it's an increase, I think we're comfortable with it.
Okay.
And honestly, to further that, it's also on our operations staff and all of us to manage it better at times. If it is really extreme, there are things that we can do and that we've spent capital dollars on in the last 5-10 years to try to manage it as well as we can versus just on, walk away, off, walk away.
If I remember, I think the forecasted rate went up less than 3%. And last year it went up like 1.5%, so.
Yeah, I mean, but when it's $40 a ton, it's hard to hit more than 3% to go for an
The rate I wasn't concerned about,
Yeah.
just the change.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
No.
warms.
It's a fair question.
Yeah, that a cold winter, especially Monster Jam or some of those times, could really get.
And the honest thing, if we're gonna get more into the weeds on it, it could be a really cold winter, but if it's not a 30-mile-an-hour wind out of the northwest and 10 below, the week of Monster Jam, when that door has to sit open for 3 days, that has a significant effect on everything as well. So.
And the only other one I had was on, I noticed, I first had a question on the bennies and that type of thing. I know we're down at 1 FTE, but health insurance is down 17,000 from last year's budget.
And I had asked that same question of Zach, and he will help me here, but it has to do with, we have some employee turnover and kind of going from a family that was a family and then dropped to a single, and things such as that.
That's good. That's all I had.
Good questions.
Was a school board question, clearly that health question.
So.
But yes, health care costs are out of control.
They are.
So at this point, with respect to the operating budget and the capital budget, we can do a steamroll motion here where we can approve both of them at one time, or we can do them individually. Amanda, do you have a preference?
I think in the past, at this level, you've done both.
I
both
make
at
a
one
motion,
time.
we do both.
Motion to accept the 2025 operating and budget.
Yeah.
Second.
And a second from Troy. Roll call?
Dan?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Troy?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And as it just dawned on me too, the other one is with the new ACA, or not new, but the ACA, the Affordable Care Act that went in. If you average more than 30 hours, you have to have health care. We had an employee take advantage of that in years past. That employee is no longer with us. So that was, so it wasn't necessarily full-time, but it was also that as well.
Yeah.
Is there a chance to make a motion on that?
I think they did them together, didn't they?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
The way it was
steamrolled that one.
stated, the way it was stated, I thought, maybe not.
Yeah, he said operating and capital. I was questioning that too, but I replayed it in my head.
Okay.
I have an eidetic memory.
When it was, when it was convenient. Yeah. Going on to item C under building and finance, and that is project and capital updates. Can I give that, or is somebody who's?
Yeah, it's just-
Yeah, you're just giving the updates. They'll
Alright.
approve it, so it's not really,
All
I
right.
mean, somebody can make the motion, make it up as a motion instead of you making it.
All right,
yeah.
so the project updates that were delivered to us last Wednesday was an update from Rob on the turf was completed. The repairs on the turf, additional items to further address the issues with turf conversions are being looked at with the above capital budget reallocation requests. And the other one was the loading dock ramp upper drain trench project. The work on this project began that day on Wednesday. So those were the two project updates that were delivered to us at last Wednesday's meeting. The last one is the escrow balance and performance, and that is information on page 20 of your packet. That's information just we received and reviewed. Oh, yes.
And I have a question on that when you're done.
Yeah, so just to be, no action necessary to receive it.
Yeah, I just have a question on that report, and Zach, I guess you're probably the one. And I really never paid attention to this under other assets and liabilities. We've got this invested securities lending collateral, note 2. I read note 2, they make a lot of sense to me. What is and why, I'm looking at the increase from 183 to 465. What is that?
That I do not know. I have the.
You know what page you're looking at?
Yep, it's the report.
It's the note 2 on page 22 about the securities lending
And then
collateral.
the report itself is a balance sheet.
End of last year, 183, as of March 31st, it's to 464.
I don't know what it even relates to. I'm trying to read the note. I should be able to understand that, but I don't.
U.S. securities are loan versus collateral value, owner market value securities.
We'll ask that of Blake next week.
Well, and it would be more, that's actually probably more for the state investment board. What I will say is I will try to remember, which means I'll ask Zach to talk to Susan to see if she knows what it
Well, I
is.
figured if Susan, she was the one to ask.
One where is no
But,
two.
It was just weird to me, and it went up, I just didn't know why.
and it went up too much if you're gonna correspond to the balance, it would have gone
That's
up.
what I was thinking.
It would have gone up too much, because it only increased by, the net assets were only by 2.3 million, so.
Okay.
All right, good question. I guess we'll find
It
that
doesn't
out.
change anything, it's just like, I feel
Yeah.
ignorant, I don't know what that is.
No, that's fine, and I'll resend you that memo that says never ask a question at a public meeting that I don't know the answer to, and make sure you ask it
I can ask
out, making sure you
I don't know
ask it
either.
outside of a meeting so we don't,
I get it, but I think Susan wasn't here, I don't know, but I didn't know what it was, so, anyway, that's all, thank you.
So, again, receive page 20.
As president, can you ask from now on written questions in advance from any board members?
I like how.
I
Rick
didn't
keeps
have an
it.
advanced, option there, so.
That would be the conclusion of the finance committee report.
Move to approve, if there is such a thing.
I think it has to come, can I?
You can't make the motion.
You can't make the motion though,
Rick
so
can make
Rick
the motion.
Rick can make it, so he
Thank
just
you.
did.
You don't need
Yep,
a second.
and you don't
Appreciate
need
it.
a second.
Yep.
It'll get better, I promise.
Dan?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Troy?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Try just going with a Navy shirt. next
Well,
time.
didn't we usually typically do the operating, the capital budget is presented in July? or is it May?
Well, we used to present it in July, then we presented it in June, and the city moved the deadline up even more and presented it in May.
You know, the state moved the deadline up for all these
Yeah.
reports that are required for.
Technically, what is it, the state has to approve the budget, the budget by October 15th or something
But
such
then
as
they have
that,
this and
and it
this
all rolls
preliminary
back,
and
so
all
the
that.
city's gotta, you know, it's just,
This is, yeah, it makes
I think for county, for example, which follows the same rule, I think it's June,
Yeah.
they've gotta get it done in, so.
yeah, we used to be June, and then when Susan took over, she decided she wanted more vacation in July. So she said, okay, as the director of finance, we're moving this up to, no, it wasn't her, it was Kent, but anyways. So yeah, they just kept moving it up.
That's where it got choppy because you gotta do the committee reports, the budget. Anyways, we'll carry on to item number 4, the subcommittee appointments, for Finance Committee for 2024-25. It would be, the appointed members of the committee would be Finance, would be Rick, Blake, and Dan, Building. would
And
be-
yourself.
And myself, and Troy, Mike, and Nancy for Building. Requesting from an appointment standpoint, probably the really only, one time the president of Dormant Authority has a.
No, you need approval
Oh,
for the committee makeup.
all right.
You need the motions. You
All right.
don't need the motion for when
For
you
the
pick the
appointments.
chairs after the
so
committees
excited.
have been appointed.
Have you ever been to one of these meetings?
Actually,
I just was wondering.
I was just following your lead, and that's why it's choppy.
I don't know that I ever screwed up that bad.
So subcommittees would be finance.
Well, due to my identity, memory, I could,
So, for finance committee would be Rick, Blake, Dan. Building would be.
And yourself.
And you.
Abby, Troy, Nancy, and Mike. Steamroll motion.
Move to approve the appointments.
I'll second.
Okay, Dan?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Troy?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
now you could have.
All right, now for appointment of chairs, Rick at finance and Mike at building.
All right.
Let it not be said that the right hand shall have strength.
Discussion on the Dome Authority remodel. The last I heard was, we're still waiting on the scientific study, which was
Oh, come on.
anticipated to be done the end of May. Received that because it was originally supposed to be done in March and then in April, and now we're being told May, so that is what we know at this point right now. Is there any other additional items in front of the FDA? Hearing none, we're adjourned.